Welcome to The Mountain Gardener with your host, Ken Lain. Gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and local advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lain, here every week talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona. And well, fall is done, okay, in Arizona at least. Autumn's kind of the last of the leaves, so I've got a couple leaves left on my maples, but it's not many. The Bradford pears, the ornamental pears, actually the fruiting pears, they look pretty good for another next windstorm. And then it's going to be officially winter. So this is when your evergreens really take front stage. And so this is when 20%, that's what designers plan when doing a design in your yard. 20% of your landscape should be dedicated to evergreens, so that when everything else is deciduous, that is, they lose their leaves, you don't look naked, you don't look bare, you don't look like a lunar landscape, like there's nothing. What happened? Did they forget to plant out there all winter long? Your evergreens, your spruce, your pine, your red tip photinias, your native mahonias and silverberries, manzanitas, your hollies on the north side. These are all the evergreen plants. There's lots of them. In fact, the garden center is filled with them because they look good this time of year. And folks are coming in, they want to have something. Hollies by the front door. That screams holidays. It's perfect. And so we have a bunch of hollies. So there's lots of evergreens are in now. But if you get that wrong, you'll be going, oh, what happened? This just feels like there's not enough here. And so you come home and it's like, you got nothing to hang your lights on. So the Lain Casa has got their lights are up and they're on. So I'm kind of excited for Christmas this year. I got Lisa the greatest gift. I can't wait to share it with you all. She's going to be so stunned. It's going to be exciting. So the trees are up. The outside's decorated. We've had our 3 Christmas parties already. Oh my gosh, it's a busy year. Post-COVID. Note to self, everyone's trying to catch up on all the parties. So they're trying to get 3 years worth crammed into one season. And it's exciting. So one thing you should watch right now. So if you've got a pond, if you've got fountains, if you've got water running out in the yard as a decor piece, you really don't want those to freeze. And so I haven't seen ice forming on top of the pond. We've got an active pond. It's pretty sizable. It's a waterfall, kind of comes up, goes to the garden. You can hear it throughout the backyard. The birds love it. And so, but one thing I do is keep the leaves out of the skimmer. That's a number one thing. So I did put a skimmer into my pond just because the debris gets so thick. And I really don't want to muck the thing out every other year. So the skimmer just takes all that debris, sucks it up, and I just have to dump it out. It's pretty full this time of year. The other one that you really have to watch, you do not want your pond to freeze solid across the top of that water feature. It's detrimental to fish because what happens is any debris that gets down in there underneath that ice, let's say leaves, just all the muck, all the dust that's happened over the season, as that gets trapped underneath that ice layer, it can kill your fish. There's some toxic things that happen, and they kind of, you'll see them they just will disappear. They died over the winter because they were underneath that ice layer, being slowly poisoned as things composted at the bottom of the pond. And so what I do is I throw a pond heater. It's an easy thing. I've got mine. It looks like a floating rock of all things. There's different types. There's cattle types. There's some that are very industrial. Throw it in there in the stock tank and it'll keep things from freezing. What it does is at about 35, 36 degrees, it activates and turns on. So there's a thermostat inside this floating pond heater. And so it just keeps a hole open. It doesn't keep the water. You're not going to take a hot tub. It's not like 103 degrees in your spa. This is just barely enough to keep that section of the pond from freezing. So for me, what I've learned, because I've gone through a couple sub-zero winters in my gardens. This is in Prescott, Arizona. About every 10 years, we get this crazy cold event that we're not used to. We're used to teens. That's normal. Single digits, we'll dip there for a day and maybe pop back up. But to go sub-zero, that's really cold. Now, you folks in the White Mountains, Flagstaff, you Williams, you're used to, you weaklings. You don't know what cold is. You should be out there in your ski gear and go down the hills. And no, there's a reason I don't live in Flagstaff. I go up there to ski, but I don't want to live there in that cold. It gets too cold. I like it here where it's, we get cold in 20s. I've seen 22 already in the backyard, and that's pretty comfortable. I enjoy that. Once you go down another 20 degrees, you're getting into low single digits. It's not fun. So I live here in Prescott, Arizona. When it gets really cold like that, that ice will just solid right over there. It can actually form where the grandkids can walk across it. It gets that thick, but if that ice gets too thick, it can actually start to freeze the pump motor. So I've got a waterfall. So I've got a 1-horse waterfall pump. And 1 year, it's happened once. I learned, I'm a slow learner. I figured it out though. The pond froze. I didn't have my pond heater, and that ice affected my waterfall pump, and it cost me $1,000 pump. That is not fun. So I put the pond heater out there. They're very inexpensive. You can get them from Amazon, any eBay, any place will have those. Any Cal Ranch, Olson's Grain, all your feed stores, they'll have those because there's a traditional stock tank. You can't have the ice. The cattle don't want their ice. Horses don't want their water iced over. You keep it open, just a hole. And it allows all the toxic gases that build up underneath that ice for the fish, keeps them from being poisoned. It keeps your motors, the pond pump, from being frozen. And it just good health, helps lets the birds into the water. So there's a lot of, kind of watch that one. Make sure you same thing, winterize everything. And so I've taken home some bags of mulch, and I've thrown them on top of my irrigation valve. So in the ground, you've got a box. I just take home a bag. There's the best insulator ever is dirt. And I'm going to use some next year anyway. So it's either manure, potting soil, mulch. Taking one of my bags I'm going to use next spring. And I take those home and I put them now on top of my irrigation box. So it keeps those valves in the ground from freezing. If we get a harsh winter, that can happen. And that's a very, very expensive part. So, because you're not just replacing one valve, you have to rebuild the entire manifold. It's going to cost you, it's going to be a $500 bill to get that done. One $10 bag of exotic potting soil. You're going to need to grow tomatoes and geraniums next year. Could prevent that from happening. So it's just easy insurance that just kind of guarantees you're not going to have problems over the winter. So already I'm seeing I had a backflow preventer go out. So your irrigation, so it was protected, but it was old. It's 20 years old. It finally gave way, started to spring a leak. So I'm going to have to replace a backflow preventer. That's many times you'll see a green bag in the yard. It's sitting there over top of a plumbing piece, comes out of the ground, comes from your irrigation box, comes up about a foot. It's a big old brass piece. And then it goes right back in the ground. And what that does, a backflow preventer, if there's a reduction of pressure from the city, from your city or whoever your provider is, it'll prevent your water from your irrigation getting sucked back into the city drinking water. That's a great device. It does keep us all healthier. But they're also prone to freezing and breaking or getting old and just giving out in this case. So kind of keep that thing from freezing, because the part itself, that big brass piece, it's like a $200 bill. Then you need to hire a plumber to go put it in for you. So you just don't want those things freeze. That's where your heat tape, the big green insulated bags, will take the pressure off. Anyway, that's some things you should watch. Watch your pond. That's one that's easy to forget because you're inside now and you go, oh, it's been running. You're enjoying sunsets through the autumn. Go, no, I love the pond out here. And now it's gotten cold. You're inside sipping a few more cups of tea, baking cookies already. And you've just forgot that it was out there. Don't do that. It's bad for your wallet, bad for your fish, and bad for your pump motor. So lots in store for you. I've got Lisa Watersgarden coming in with your garden questions right after this. Be right back.
holidays are here in Arizona's Christmas City, bringing family closer and those chilly winter winds.
While you're decorating the outside, don't forget to brighten up the inside with exotic Christmas plants from Watters.
Beautiful Christmas cactus and poinsettia are coming to town, grown exclusively by Watters in colors you won't find anywhere else.
Unique, vibrant, and guaranteed to warm even the dreariest winter day.
For exotic Christmas plants at Watters Garden Center in Prescott.
You've been listening to The Mountain Gardener with Ken Lain, owner of Watters Garden Center in Prescott. Join him every week for timely garden advice right for the gardens. Visit Ken where he can be found throughout the week at Watters Garden Center in Prescott.